everybody. Welcome back to the Quantum Guide Show. And today I'm very happy to bring back my insightful panel, Ryan Patrick Burns and Gary Michael May-McGill. Before we start, let me tell you a little bit about them. Ryan Patrick Burns began researching the Uintah Basin and the mysterious Skinwalker Ranch years ago. But when his passion for answers could no longer be quenched, he left his corporate job in Salt Lake City and moved to the desolate and remote basin to investigate the ranch full time. Ryan now owns property overlooking the ranch, and he hosts the popular podcast Hero Paranormal. And he's also written about his experiences investigating Skinwalker. Gary Michael May-McGill is an American actor, entertainer, singer, songwriter, filmmaker, comedian, producer, editor, activist, psychic medium, and his mission is to spread love into the universe. His YouTube channel is called Camp G-May, and it is an original music video jukebox, an elaborate mixture of Gary Michael May and Tribe Sunshine. Gary Michael May-McGill also hosts an open mic jam live stream, 7 p.m. to midnight PST, every Saturday night. Everyone is welcome to play a tune on the open mic virtual stage or just hang out and make some friends. Camp G-May and Gary Michael also host live virtual festivals and concerts, and he's always looking for new artists to join and collaborate. Today, we're going to talk about OBEs, NDEs, and astral projection. What is the difference, or do you think they're all part of the same phenomenon? All of the links are featured below in the description. Please do check me out, subscribe to my channels, leave me a comment, like my videos, and please do share my content with your friends. And I'm happy to announce the channel memberships are now available, so you can help to support my channel and take advantage of my perks. Without further ado, here is Gary and Ryan. Welcome to the Quantum Guide Show, guys.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
Great to be here as always. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for coming. I always enjoy our discussions, and I know the audience does too. And so before we get into it, I've been thinking a lot about, OBE, for those in the audience that aren't familiar with that term, is out-of-body experiences. NDE is short for near-death experiences. And then, of course, there's astral projection. Now, I'm wondering, I'd love to hear what you guys think about whether or not they're all part of the same phenomena. And I could loosely link that in with lucid dreaming and also sorry, the term just slipped my mind, remote viewing. Do you think those are all loosely tied into the same phenomena, or do you see them as being very, very, very separate?
Well, that's interesting that you said that, because I think that's the biggest question. Am I having a near-death experience? Usually is tied with out-of-body experiences. They kind of go hand in hand. But the thing is that out-of-body experience really happening, or is it just a delusional dream that you're having within your brain, and it's just really not happening? I think that's the biggest thing to kind of try to figure out, What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I think they're all very related, and it is hard to figure out. But the interesting thing is that I'm a history buff. I'm surprised I didn't pay more attention in school to my history lessons. But the idea of these journeys that the soul makes out of the body, either while you're alive or even in the afterlife, things that are known as out-of-body experiences are, something that almost everybody conceptually agrees historically that it is some sort of an astral plane, right? And what's interesting is whether it's Plato talking of, his philosophies, or John Dee, who was a magus and a scientist who studied the astral plane, they relate to it as a plane. And it's interesting because a plane is something flat where you can kind of arrange the pieces. And I think that all those things you mentioned, Karen, are parts of the pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm just going to start by talking a little bit about my experiences, and then guys, please do jump in and compare and contrast what's happened with you in your lifetime. Um, I recently published my book called Transdimensional: Meet the New Neighbors, and my experiences came from lucid dream states. They came from remote viewing. They came from astral projection, and I was having these experiences that were off-world experiences, and I was having them very regularly. And all the information came together as one congruent storyline, and I was able to put together and publish my book. But as I look at how did I know this? How did I know that? It came to me in even spontaneous knowing where I just knew, and I don't know how I knew. And it was just really interesting. So that's why I think it might be part of the same phenomenon. And then later on in the discussion, we can talk a little bit about some of the whistleblowers who are coming out and support this theory that I have. But my experiences, I'd like to clarify, have very seldomly been initiated consciously by me. They just happen. They just happen. And I'll have either missing time, or it'll happen while I'm sleeping, or I just have them happen. I can't explain it, but it's not like I sit down, meditate, and go, oh, I'm going to astral project today. It for some reason, it doesn't work that way with me. It just happens. So, Gary, you've had out of body experiences, haven't you?
Yeah, I've had one, and what gets me the most, I think, basically, when I think about this topic is, okay, out of body. Okay, well, obviously you're out of your body, right? So where are you? Okay, so to me, you're definitely like in the same category as like, we talk about, hey, Wi-Fi. You can't see it. It travels really fast. Like 1 second you're here and 1 second you're on the other side of the planet. So you can travel pretty quick through that dimension. I think that you are in true consciousness when you travel through these, when you have these out of body, because that was my experience. Because one thing, when you think about it, it's like one thing that's been happening on the planet since the planet's existence, two things, and it isn't death and taxes, okay? It's people are die and people are born. It doesn't end. It keeps happening. It's every 80, every 10, 8, 9 decades that this recycling keeps happening. And I truly believe that when you do that, you are in true consciousness, because when you know that, how can I put this? You don't get your cognitive reasoning in your brain as a human until you're about 3, 4 years old. Until then, you're basically slowly coming out of true consciousness. Because when you're in the womb, you can feel the blood rushing over your ears. You remember it. You don't know your name. You don't know anything other than that you exist in true consciousness. And that's the feeling. That true consciousness feeling is what I experienced. And I'll tell you about it. But Ryan, what do you think about all that? What do you got to say?
I love that term that you used, Gary, true consciousness, because it's so true. It's so real. And when you have it, as you get older, you become more aware of not just your surroundings, but more importantly, yourself. And I'm going to be 50 in May. And, over the past almost 5 decades, if you would have asked me, Ryan, are you scared to die? My answer would be 100% not happening. I'll do anything I can to avoid it. But there's this weird, I don't know if it's a switch that flipped or an awareness, or what I like that term, that true consciousness, that no longer is one of my fears. It's maybe a fear for my loved ones. I worry about their well-being, but if anything, it's something that from I'm so positive, maybe I should say, I am so 100% positive that the doors of perception hold more behind the death moniker, that I'm willing to bet the ranch. If it came to that, it's not something that I'm gonna be chasing transhumanism to live forever.
Yeah.
And I think true consciousness is such a good way to describe it, Gary. Good
Yeah.
term.
Well, it's just, I think that we can all sit here and watch videos and research and listen to other people's experiences. It all has validity, the white light and floating towards the light and all these different similarities. But I think until you actually experience it for yourself, that's when it becomes real. That's when it becomes absolutely 100%, like you said, Ryan, you're 100% committed to that. Hey, I'm not afraid of this anymore because I have this experience. But then again, the pendulum swings back over to, was that just a delusional dream that I had? Was that real, in the sense that, was I just dreaming all kinds of nonsense? Did that really happen? You know what I mean? In a weird way. So it's hard for me to draw the line. What do you think, Karen?
Well, I do believe that truth is stranger than fiction. Absolutely. But I have some friends who are into shamanism using psychedelics, and they use psychedelics to help induce these altered states of consciousness. But the things they learn are extremely valid and highly spiritual, and they have found sanity and health from doing these practices. So, and the other thing too is in Aboriginal groups all around the world, shamanism, which can include and usually does different alternate states of reality, have been used for all kinds of things. Everything from letting them know when they need to pick up and move to a different location because something's going to happen, or perhaps different states of spirituality for helping them to understand themselves and each other better, and of course for health and for healing. And it's interesting that and I'm not trying to pick on religion here, because I know that these states are even induced in many different religions, even Christian religions. But it's interesting to see how the powers that be have worked so hard to exterminate these Aboriginal groups who we have so much to learn from, and that kept them in health and positivity, for thousands and thousands of years. I want to tell you another thing that's interesting. I was involved with fundamental religion for a number of years until I just had to leave. And I'm not putting down religion. Like I said, if it does it for you, fine. But I went to check out one of these evangelical type churches. I'm not sure if I'm using the right word, but the ones where they're all aglow with the spirit, they're jumping up and down, and and the energy that was circulating in the room was absolutely real and intense. I also went to witch school for a while because when I left religion, I wanted to sort of dabble in all different kinds of systems to see what they were all about. And when I went to witch school, and we would do a circle of power, or just sacred circles, the energy would build and to a peak, and then we would all ground ourselves. And it was exactly the same, in my opinion, as what was going on at these Christian active Christian churches. And I went, oh my God, it's exactly the same. And so I think there's something to it because it keeps showing up in every culture and in
Yeah,
historically, and it does so much for people. I think that is the important thing, is it's not just about, oh, I had this happen, or I was out of body, or I astral traveled. It's about how it has a tremendous transformative effect in our lives. I think that's what the important point here is.
absolutely. Yeah. So this whole out of body thing, I had one experience with it, one and one only. And I'm actually coming up on, it was May 15th, 1985. I celebrate it every year. I'm coming up on my 40th anniversary. Isn't that crazy? But I'll tell you a little bit about it if you want. I was couple months away from turning 21. I had been out on my own since I was 17. So for about 3-4 years there, I had accumulated all kinds of really cool stuff. I was out in the world on my own. I had been working at the same place since I was 13 and a half. Okay. And that's a long time for a young kid, man. And I decided that I wanted a different life. I wanted something else. This wasn't going to be how I was going to spend my 20s, working in a restaurant, right? So I quit my job. I was at home. I had a roommate, and it was a restaurant that stayed open until 2 a.m. Well, he comes home, bunch of people, and they're partying. Someone leaves a cigarette on the couch, and they all leave, and a lit cigarette falls in between the cushion and the handrail. And I'm in my room with the door closed. And by about 7 a.m, the entire place is on fire. Okay. I woke up during that. And I remember being so euphoric, so high. It was almost like coming out of just regular dreaming, And I remember it felt so good. And basically what was happening is I was getting smoke inhalation. My entire room was completely full of smoke, so thick that you can't even see your hand. But I didn't know that. I slipped back into it. Okay. I'm like, this feels good. I'm not going anywhere. And so timeline, I'm not surely what happened here and there, but basically what ended up happening is at some point, I lived right next to a pretty big skyscraper too. It was like 18, 19 stories high. It was a big building in the city I lived in. So I lived like right next to it. And I remember that at one point I started floating like up. It was almost like I was in true consciousness again, just like being in the womb. I didn't know what my name was. I didn't know any information. All I know is that I existed. That same feeling where you're alive, you know who you are. You can also even almost mentally talk to yourself. It's bizarre, but I started floating up and I'm looking down at myself through the roof, transparency, and I see myself laying in there, but I don't even know it was me. Because at this point, I'm not in my brain anymore. I thought that I was just true consciousness and I'm floating up. It felt so good. I wasn't scared. I was enjoying the ride. I was getting higher and higher. I could see the skyscraper right next to me. And I was just floating up and I was getting higher and higher. And it felt absolutely fantastic. And like I said, the only thing that I can describe it as is true consciousness, just like being in the womb, because as sick as it sounds, I do remember being in the womb. I remember squishing around, the blood going over your ears, and you know who you are. You don't know what your name is. You don't know anything. So that tells me that I'm starting to become part of this recycling of this energy that you can't destroy. And as I'm floating up and I'm getting higher and higher, all the chemicals and stuff underneath the kitchen sink, the Raid, the furniture polish, the this and the that start exploding. And it sucked me right back into my body. And I open my eyes and I'm in my room, pitch smoke. And I run over to my door. I fill my door. It's blazing hot. I crack it open just a little bit. The whole front room's on fire. And Dick Van Dyke saved my life, because I remember growing up watching these Dick Van Dyke commercials where he said, put the blanket over your head, stay low, run to this door. I used all his information. Sure enough, I run through it with my blanket over my head. And the people out front said that because, it had been burning and the fire department was just showing up. When I opened the door, flames were shooting out the top and the oxygen was coming in the bottom. And that's where I was coming out. And the whole blanket was on fire. I was on fire. But I didn't get burned like really bad because I had the blanket over me. And when the fire marshal got there, he said, normally people just run through it and you hit these pockets, boom, and it just melts you, So I got really lucky that I was able to escape that, because when I opened the front door, my roommate at the same time was going out his window and every window blew when I opened up the front door. Total, just like in the movies, man. But after that, I said, was I dreaming? Was that real? But it has to be real, because it wasn't like any dream that I've ever had, because of the intense true consciousness that I was in. So that's my story. Thank you for listening. And that's my one out of body near-death experience, man. And it was crazy. I remember it every day to this day, 40 years later.
Wow. It's a miracle you made it out. Thank God. And maybe if you hadn't had the out-of-body experience, you wouldn't have been able to get out in time. I don't know. It might have saved your life, but I totally believe you. And that's the other thing with transdimensional or out-of-body, depending what you want to call it. It's more real than our life here in the three-dimensional. It's so super real. I just love it. Ryan, did you want to add anything? I know you've had out-of-body experiences. Your skinwalker experience could be classed as an out-of-body, but maybe you've had something else too you want to tell us.
I have had them, and probably the most amazing one that I remember was not planned. And I've taken remote viewing master classes, and I've gotten involved in a lot of the same things you have, Karen. And, getting back to what you were talking about, that energy, where witches describe it as one thing and Christians another, but it is the same energy. I find that there's a saying, and it goes along the lines of witches call it spells, Christians call it prayer, spiritualists call it manifestation, atheists call it placebo effect, scientists call it quantum physics. Everyone's arguing over it and what it's named, but nobody is denying its existence. And when you feel it, you feel it. It's a lot like, an astral projection or an out-of-body experience itself. And when it happened to me, the most memorable was, like you said, so vivid, Karen. I went to a place and I saw somebody in a situation. I immediately got on the phone with them. And I said, hey, the weirdest thing happened. I just saw you in a situation. What's going on? And they said, no, that's exactly what's going on. How did you see this? And when I told them that it just came to me and that it seemed more real than what we would call base reality, they immediately thought that, there was a fly on the wall, or that the place was bugged where they were at, when it was 100%, something within me, and not something I called upon. For whatever reason, it just happened. And as I study this stuff, you realize that, like, the CIA declassified a lot of documents in the early 2000s related to something they called the Gateway
Uh-huh.
projects and programs. And the reason they did is because, with surprising accuracy, a lot of people are starting kind of coming to the realization that these things, like remote viewing, like astral projection, and the validity of their results is starting to be accepted with quantum science. So I think there's a lot of truth to what you said. It's more real beyond the veil than it is here.
Yeah, I believe it is too. I want to take a, a short break for a 2-minute promotion. When we come back, I want to see how this sort of all overlaps with the whole psionic movement that's now coming out. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's fascinating information. So everybody hang on. We got a quick 2-minute promotion, and then we'll come back to the discussion. Transdimensional, meet the new neighbors. Check out my new book available from Amazon bookstores worldwide and read the stunning details about ET diversity and culture, along with their advanced ways of living and expressing spirituality, which is in no way like anything imagined here on Earth. Transdimensional, Meet the New Neighbors introduces you to many different ET beings, the healing pods, the interior of the big ship, my orientation process, cultural events, and off-world mating practices. When I tucked myself into bed for the night back in 2014, I had no idea that I would be transported to the big ship, meet many different extraterrestrial races of beings, become well acquainted with their culture, and visit numerous interesting worlds. While away, I learned a great deal about the big ship, intergalactic and transdimensional travel, intergalactic planetary research, and the various options for resettlement. My true life adventures continued night after night, and I had never experienced anything like this before. The first few times that I awoke back at home, I convinced myself that it had all been some kind of a fantastic dream. But while away, I was eating, sleeping, learning, and visiting, all the while experiencing what I perceived as days, weeks, and months. I am so happy to present you with my true nonfiction account of my weird little life and the more important messages from beyond our realm that I have been tasked to share with all of you. It is my hope and sincere desire that I will inspire you to acknowledge your own transdimensional abilities and experiences so that together we can become the change we wish to see in our world. Paperback and Kindle editions are now available at all Amazon bookstores. Go to the Amazon website, select the bookstore or Kindle store, and enter Transdimensional, Meet the New Neighbors by Karen Holton. The Audible version is coming out soon. And we're back. So we've been talking about out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, astral projection. We've talked a bit about how that has been exercised culturally around the world, interfaith ways. Gary shared his very interesting out-of-body experience, as did Ryan. For those of you who are joining us late, please do go back to the beginning, watch the replay so that you can catch up on these fascinating experiences. So now I'm wanting to talk a little bit about the psionics program. So Ryan, you talked about the Gateway program. I believe the psionics sort of evolved out of the Gateway program. But I've been watching some amazing content over the last couple of weeks of whistleblowers who have come forward, and some of them inadvertently, and some of them through um, training, have had contact with these orbs that people are seeing. And the one fellow who was a pilot who was transporting one of these orbs, he ended up having, I guess, an intermingling of consciousness with some kind of consciousness. So he doesn't know whether it's an actual being on board the object that they picked up, or whether there's this consciousness that operates the orb through consciousness. So all of a sudden, we're finding out that there are all kinds of people, well documented, not crazy, not wingnuts, people who are able to have contact with extraterrestrials, and also with these what for lack of a better word I'll call spaceships. And what's also really interesting is the thing that connects all of it is the harmonic of love. Do either of you want to talk about your thoughts about this?
The harmonic of love, absolutely. I mean, it is so obvious that love is a very, very powerful tool, because it connects us all, you know. So I actually would like to learn more about these orbs and these stories about how they're communicating with these people, because I think that was one of my biggest things that I took away from my out-of-body experience was I want to get back to, it's not like I want to die, but it's just like, where was I going? What was going to happen? Was I going to get resorted in somewhere in the world in this, like we talked about, people are always dying, people are always being born. It's this constant recycling of energy. And I think that's why, you know, I haven't done hard drugs or drugs like in 30 years, but in my 20s, that's what I went on to do. I didn't care about physical possessions. I was more interested in people and partying and trying to connect and figure out where I was going. So, you know, you take mushrooms, LSD, drugs, peyote, opium, you try all these different things, not because you're addicted to it, because you want to try to get to where you were. Did you ever feel that way, Ryan or Karen? Because like I heard you say earlier that sometimes you try to invoke to be able to do this, but you can't invoke it. It has to come through, I guess, some means, right?
Well, for me, I have to say, I practice a form of meditation that's called heart-mind coherence. And I think it's Greg Braden who talks a lot about it. And basically, I just focus on my heart and I start to think about people that I love very, very much. Well, that also could include my pets that I have a strong feeling of love for. And then I just breathe in and then breathe out, but my exhalation is just a little bit longer than my inhalation. And pretty soon, my heart and my brain form what they call coherence. And I know from research that also causes my heart's toroidal field, which is my energy field that's all around me. So all of us are like inside a giant sphere of energy that we're producing.
Wow. Wow.
Go into that state, I can experience states of bliss that just make me cry. I'm not crying for sad. I'm just crying because I can feel the love so intensely. And I
Power of
do
love.
a little of that every day. I have all kinds of intuitive hits and imaginings and things that I know are absolutely real. So I think that also ties in with the psionics. Even Dr. Stephen Greer, who teaches the CE5, which is human initiated contact. But I want to say one thing that I think is really important. People generally have a fear response when it comes to extraterrestrials, and I think that's been programmed into us. And where there's fear, love does not really resonate very much at all. But when we're resonating, where we can feel the emotion of love so strong, fear can't enter, and all of our contacts are extremely positive. That's just in my experience.
Wow, that's really good point you just made there. It really hit home. Really did, Karen. So true.
Yeah, the fear aspect. I'm glad you touched on that, because the natural ones are definitely the most powerful, as Gary was saying. And you know, the closest I've gotten to just the, you know, immediate that like that example I gave is doing what they call recapitulation in the Toltec tradition. I went with an eagle heart shaman, and for a while was learning after these sweat lodges how to do this recapitulation, which is a breath exercise where your mind has this emotional component, and it's able to, most importantly, detach. And the reason that detachment's so important is because of fear. You have all these fears that get in the way. They are like filters, keeping you away from that raw energy, or you know. And it's one of those things that you hear fear oftentimes described as a bunch of things, you know, being the ultimate tool for the adversary, false evidence appearing real. And it's true, because when it comes to these, even these psionic projects in the context of astral projection, and I really liked your example that you used of this recent whistleblower, Jake Barber, saying that when he retrieved this extraterrestrial tech, this egg-shaped UAP, that he had an intense emotional reaction, which convinced him he had connected with this telepathically, and he was not one of the psionic military assets. And we find that, you know, the government keeps changing the names of these things. A lot of people were shocked when they heard psionic military asset, because that's obviously remote viewer, or if you went further back, someone with ESP. And as long as they can change the term and move it into another subgroup, the project continues, the funding continues. And, you know, these are key points when it comes to how this progress is being made. They can say, oh, no, we're not doing remote viewing anymore. Well, no, they are. They're just calling it psionic.
Calling it something different. Yeah. And I think they also keep doing that because they want to maintain control over it. But the cat's out of the bag. And as Jake Barber says, once he connected, he's never disconnected. The same is for me. Once I connected, I'm never disconnected. And it's such a lovely state of being to experience. Gary, after the show, I'm going to send you on Messenger links to a couple of these episodes so you get a really mind-blowing experience from watching them. But the cat is out of the bag. And the thing that shocked everybody is all of this is happening on the love harmonic, the feelings of love, deep, deep feelings of love that we experience are undeniable. And love is what's going to change this world and fix things. You know, it's very exciting.
Well, it all ties together for me, because as I'm floating up and I don't know my name or anything, I know I exist, I know who I am. One thing I am feeling is this overflow of love. Okay. Mm-hmm. So as like you guys said, this fear mongering and all this stuff and love, it's like, so as I'm chasing this experience in my 20s and 30s and trying to figure it out, what I figured out is that, you know, hey, we all need our brain. Our brain is important. Okay. But it's not who we are. It's not who our consciousness is, because our brain, you know, you need it to figure out this, figure it out. You need it. But there comes a time when you need to take your brain, you need to put it on the shelf and not use it at all and be in consciousness, because that's what I found where I like to go, because with that, it's just pure love. And you don't have this programmed hatred. You don't have this programmed fear, you know, because you're not using your brain. You're just in consciousness. And so through meditation, breathing, different things like that, that's how you put it on the shelf. So.
And I also believe, and as my experience has taught me, that in our brains, we have our consciousness, but we also have these, what I believe is an amazing technology. So our imagination, we were taught, oh, that's just something we do to entertain ourselves. It's not real, it's fantasy. I don't believe that, because based on my own out-of-body experiences and psychic and transdimensional experiences, I have found that it's actually a portal. Think of it as being like a stargate or a wormhole that can take us to different worlds and help us to have contact with other beings. But the key is intention, and that's the love harmonic. That is what makes sure that your path is something beautiful, spiritual. And I think that all of us have the capacity for that. And indeed, it's our birthright. But for thousands of years, we've been programmed, oh, don't go there. That's where demons are. Don't go there. Only the king knows what's best for you. We've been programmed and dummied down and dummied down. And here is our chance to be free. No wonder so many cultures did psychedelics, because it was a way that they could get that freedom and use that technology. And that's just the word I use for it. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Yeah, I think that's there's so much to this, because there's the physical, like you mentioned, with the brain. And I'm always mesmerized when we see science kind of disprove itself. And there was a gentleman who did a bunch of MK Ultra, like really, really brutal stuff. He was actually tied to the MK Ultra program, but his name was Jose Manuel Rodriguez Delgado. A lot of people just called him Jose Delgado if you want to look him up. And he would remove these huge chunks of a variety of animals' brains and tried with a lot of theatrics. And ultimately, he got a bull in a bull arena, and he attached a remote control button that caused the bull to stop or to charge. It was all about mind control. But what he ultimately did was sort of disprove a lot of the belief that the brain is everything, right? Because he would take these huge chunks out of these animals' brains and expect them to no longer function, but they would function. Their instincts would kick in, or something would kick in.
Yeah.
And more recently, this was oh my gosh, scientists were researching a man that was missing 90% of his brain, who was leading a perfectly normal life. And it was a French man. And this he was complaining about, oh, I have a little bit of difficulty with one of my legs. And when doctors did brain scans, they realized that, like, his brain had all but disappeared inside his skull. There was just a thin layer on the outside of the skull of brain tissue left, a condition known as hydrocephalus. And the doctors could not understand, you shouldn't even function. This leg problem you're talking about is nothing. Like, he was just like, one of my legs goes numb every once in a while. And the guy was fine. So it just goes to show there's so much more to us than just, a glob of fat in our skull.
Mm-hmm.
I think the energy, the true consciousness of who you really are, that love, that energy is in your body. And now it's able to use the brain as a tool to remember things. So that's why, for me, when I was out of that and I wasn't in that, I wasn't using my brain anymore. That's how come I didn't know anything. When you're in true consciousness, you can't remember anything because you don't have your brain anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The brain's back there in the body. So all you know is love and energy and who you are. And there almost is like this communication that you can do telepathically, because you're not in a body, you're just in that consciousness. So there's a form of communication that goes with that. So
And
interesting
really
stuff.
quick, this happens so much more than we're just a really quick story, because it's kind of close to me. My late father, he was mugged, and they used a bat and a variety of other things. Long story short, they stole his car, but they injured him so badly that he had to get a plate in his head. And the neuroscientist told him, you'll never walk again, you'll never talk again, you'll never work again, you'll never drive again. And he did all those things and more. And, that was my first like taste of, you don't always believe what they tell you, right? There's more to this.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. My former mother-in-law, she had an aneurysm, and it took out part of her brain, I guess very similar to having a massive stroke. And she's in the hospital recovering. And unbeknownst to the nurses, our healthcare system is not very good here in Canada. And, the nurses are, I don't know, preoccupied. They're not always keeping track of the patients. Anyway, so my former mother-in-law, she just got the urge to go outside. She couldn't explain it. So she'd get dressed and she'd go outside. The next day, she'd go to the bus stop. The next day, she waited for a bus and she got on a bus not knowing where she was going, had no idea what she was doing. Next thing you know, she gets off at this building and she just goes inside the building. It turns out her key fits one of the doors. She was going home every day and making herself a cup of tea and a little snack, and then going back to the hospital. They didn't even know she was gone. And from a medical perspective, that would have been impossible. But she recovered so fast as a result. So yeah, it's the plasticity of the brain is amazing. I've also seen documentaries from what you were saying, Ryan, about people, babies that were born and the doctors just put them aside and said, no, they're brain dead. They will never survive. And the mothers said, bums to you. I'm taking my baby home. Just raise the baby like a normal baby. And these human beings, when they grew up, they actually had very high intellect. They became like accountants and things. And technically, that's not possible. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is nothing is impossible. I think that reality is a lot more fluid, flexible, and working in our favor than what many of us can imagine. And it's my hope, as we come out and talk more about these things, and now that there's more and more information available, gone public about psychic abilities and ET contact and all the amazing things, people are going to start going, wow. And I'll bet you more people are going to go, I knew it all along, than the so-called fear response that the government says that why they have to keep everything secret because they think we can't handle it. I think we can handle it just fine. What do you think, guys?
Absolutely. Look, we're all trying to gain pleasure. We're all trying to do the things that bring us happiness, that bring us joy, that bring us love. It's called gaining pleasure. I asked that a lot of the people around me. I said, what brings you pleasure? I like to go golfing. I like to eat. I like to do this. I like to do that. All good stuff. But then you got on the other side of the pendulum, which is fear that they install on you. So you get a lot of those people that spend their lives avoiding fear. You got to go to work and get up. It keeps you in line, because if not, you're going to be next to the garbage can. You know what I mean? So a lot of people spend their lives avoiding fear, and sometimes I say to myself, God, is it the same thing? Because you're gaining pleasure from avoiding fear. So crazy stuff. What do you think, Ryan?
100%, Gary. There's that fear. There is no prison that is more secure than that fear. And I always like to look at like the words themselves, like impossible, which is really I'm possible if you separate it and get rid of that fear. Or just the bondage of self that people manifest upon themselves because of the fear. Oh, you can't pay the rent, so you've got to go. Oh, what? Well, that fear of what could be without knowing what it is.
Right. Right.
90% of the time, the fear in our minds is 100% worse than anything that could possibly happen.
And it actually doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
You hit the pillow every night, no matter what. So,
Yep. The fear of the thing is much worse than the thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And, another thing we talked about out of body and how blissful that can be, what a beautiful state that is. And, I think that's what happens to us when we die. We shed our mortal coil and we go off on a great adventure. And I'm actually, for some time now, have not been afraid of death. I used to be terrified of it, and I'm not anymore, because I think that there's a lot of things in life that are not fun. And, I think you do the best you can. You're here to do soul evolution. You evolve to the point as far as you can. You make the changes you need. A lot of us are working on our shadows and resolving intergenerational dysfunction. And, we do the best we can for our kids, our neighbors, whatever. And then, you get to the point where it's time for you to go to do something different. And, so that's what I think. I think that we never actually die, and we're never actually born. We go through, like what you were saying, Gary, we go through cycles. We're born,
like
we die, we born.
Type trip. Yeah.
Yeah. And you think about how fleeting your life is. Now, most people, until they're about 60 years old, don't quite get how fleeting our lives are. It doesn't make sense for us to come into this world and then in 2 generations, nobody even knows that we were here. I really think that it's a recurring, and I also think we're not always stuck to come back as humans. We might be coming back as ET. I don't know. Like, the possibilities are endless. I find it actually quite exciting.
I think that energy that I was talking about I think that because I wasn't in my brain anymore, I didn't know, I had no clue about anything other than love and consciousness, that I could have easily been put in a womb somewhere, seriously, and have that same feeling I had last time when I got put in. Because you talk about all these subjects about abortion and this and that, and when does it become this, and when does it have a developed brain and a developed heart? And I think that's when that consciousness, there's a point when that consciousness comes into that. And I think that's what keeps recycling everything. And then while you're here, you try to leave a mark on the planet while you're in this body of, hey, look, I was here. I did this, I did that. And then, so I honestly think that everyone, that energy, you can't destroy it. It will, it lives forever, man, because you can't destroy energy. So it just has to get put back into another brain, another heart, another love.
Yeah. And I think, I don't want to say too much, but I believe through my own research, that we are, after the transfer, recycled, if I might use that term, and potentially recycled a lot quicker than many controlling religions would have you believe. And what's interesting is most, religions, almost all major religions, except for Christianity and Islam, believe in some form of reincarnation. You have Catharism, Alawites, Hasidic Judaism, Kabbalists, Rastafarians, Rosicrucians, ancient Greek, indigenous people, pagan religions.
Yes.
The list goes on and on. Buddhists, Hindu.
So true.
Yeah, it's just, and when you ask yourself, well, why would certain religions not want this? Well, the fear, the loss of control. It's very difficult to threaten someone who believes they're coming right back.
Right.
Mhm.
And, yeah, you know, it's one thing to be spiritual, but, you know, and then you have organized religion, you know, to me, they're two completely different things, you know. And
Yep,
then
there's this big
usually how they get people is like, you know, when one of your loved ones passes, it's through the church and the funeral and this, all that. So that if you ever question that, it's like questioning their existence. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? That's how they kind of get you. But, you know, everyone has the right, you know, I believe. And the good news about when I say what I believe is I can believe anything I want. And I have the right to change my mind at any time. But the point is, hey, man, more power to you. Whatever makes you happy, what you believe in, what you think, uh, and what you believe in is up to you and who you want to pray to. And, but like Ryan and Karen says, it's all pretty much the same thing, man. Love is love, hate is hate. It's real simple.
Mhm. I think so. And there's an old saying that says that a religious man goes to church and thinks about fishing, and a spiritual man goes fishing and thinks about God. And I thought that was a good way to put it. Folks, we're quickly running out of time. I'm wondering if we could just do a go round and Gary and Ryan, I really appreciate you being here today. It's been an awesome discussion. Thank you so much. I'm wondering if you want to give us any last minute thoughts or suggestions or anything you want to share. And then please tell me and the audience what you guys are up to. I know, Gary, you got a big festival coming up, and Ryan, you always got things on the docket. What are you guys up to, and where can people reach you and find out more about the work that you do on your channels?
Ryan, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I have, if you're on YouTube, you can follow me at Hero Paranormal. And you can also go to heroparanormal.com. You can also follow some of the high strangeness at spacewolfresearch.com. It is also on social media like Facebook, Instagram. And I will be speaking at Phoenix MUFON, let's see, February 22nd. If somebody's in the Phoenix area and wants to hear me babble for an hour, but it's just a blessing being here. I love the topics you do, Karen, and I love Gary's take on things. I could talk to you guys forever.
Wow, thank you so much, Ryan. Appreciate that. And
Mhm.
also, too, I think the three of us have some great conversations. We bounce around with each other, and everyone can kind of relate and give their interjection, and it's a lot of fun. So I appreciate that, Karen. Thank you.
Oh, I appreciate you guys.
Yeah. As far as, you know, my final comments and stuff, like I said, my you know, a whole thing is spreading love into the universe, and when you think about it, it kind of makes sense. You know, I'm floating up into this universe, this true energy of love, and then, you know, as we talk about it and you guys keep bringing up these points, it just invokes even more love. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. My message to everyone would be like, spread love.
Mhm. Totally. Now, I just want to say a few things about Kirkfest coming up.
Yes, you know, how one of the vehicles I use to spread love into the universe is music. So I have a channel where every Saturday night I go live and have people come up and from all over the world, beautiful, beautiful people, and they jam with me, musicians, guitar players, keyboard players, singers, and we spend every Saturday night spreading love into the universe through music. And then it's an open mic. So then every month or two, 4 times a year, I throw a big festival. And this next festival we have coming up is called Kurt Fest. It's a good friend of ours from the music community that actually passed away in December. And we're doing a benefit concert for him. Would you guys like to see the promo video?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me see here. Let me grab it and I'll share it and then you can play it. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's actually a lot more. I made this promo a while ago. There's a lot of really cool artists up and beyond the ones that are in this promo that have actually joined. We're actually at almost 30 artists. It's going to go for 12 hours, and each artist does like a 20-minute set. So it's down there if you want to share it.
There we go.
What's up? It's G-May, baby, and I'm going to be hosting Kurt Fest. Now we're looking for some more talent to come jam with me and my friends. And here they are.
Coming February 8th at 4:20 Pacific. It's Kurt Fest 25. Featuring Quincy Game, AMC Kramer, Mike Molino, Chris Wayne Sr., Will D, Michael Songs, Mr. Smith, Adam Cohen, April Dawn, Wall Street BH, Valerie Rod, Leia Dale, Layla Verse, Kurt Fest 25. With special guests Axe and Nacho, Pokin Bluesa, Al Sanchez, Emperism, the Maestro, Liz Day, Jade Star, and with special co-hosts, Lori's Mishmash, Richly Design, Natasha, Chris Wayne Sr., Layla Verse, and Kurt Fest headliner is Violet Femme.
Oh, I can't wait. Thank you for sharing that, Gary. Oh my God, it's going to be so much fun. I can't wait.
That's how
So
you spread love
everybody,
into the universe. And you want to hear something very interesting? It's interesting how this episode and topic all ties together. Because Kurt was in a wheelchair and he was paralyzed and he was partially blind, and they wanted to give him all these prescription pills and shit. And he died in a house fire, unfortunately, but he was doing fine. That's why it's the whole mushroom thing, because his choice of medication was mushrooms, cannabis, alternative plant-based, you know what I mean? It wasn't this, concoction of bullshit chemistry, and he was traveling, and that's why he loved the music community, because he would take his mushrooms and he would just help spread love into the universe. And he did. He went to every community in the music community. He gave money, he gave support, he pumped people up. He was so positive and so full of love that, rest in peace, Kurt. We're going to have a good time next Saturday, but it's next Saturday night. But thank you for the letting me play that. I appreciate that, Karen.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah. So in the links below, you can find how to find Gary and yeah, everybody come to Kurt Fest. You'll have a blast. And so with that, I want to say thank you, Ryan, again. Very much appreciate you and Gary. And it's been just very exciting. Boy, the hour goes by so fast. And yeah, I just love it so much. So all of you out there, whether you're listening on an audio or watching the replay, or whether you've come and joined us in the live chat, I want to send out much love and happiness to each and every one of you. And we'll see you Sunday for Aliens and Angels, or again next week on Wednesday on the Quantum Guide Show. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you for joining me for the Quantum Guide Show. Become the change that you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to my YouTube and other channels at Karen Holton TV. Click the like button, leave me a comment, and share this podcast with your friends. Read about my true life ET contact in my book called Transdimensional: Meet the New Neighbors, which is now available in Amazon bookstores worldwide. Check out my website at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you will find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton, and also the Aliens and Angels podcast on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.